Whenever two movies share a name, I'm always guaranteed to have a bad time. I'm not a huge fan of sequels, and I don't want to hear the word remake. So far, I have been proven right. Very few movies have successfully pulled off a sequel. Even fewer have managed a competent remake. Scarface is one of those elite few. While it's not a perfect movie, its faults are easy to forgive because at this point in time, Al Pacino could do no wrong. Also, despite Brian De Palma going kinda overboard with the runtime, what we get in the end is a fun reinterpretation of the original film. So do I finally have a perfect original remake combo? It seems so. Paul Muni as Tony Camonte and Al Pacino as Tony Montana have haunted my thoughts for the past few days. In a good way, of course. For this reason, I can wholeheartedly recommend both movies. Although I'd suggest you start with the 1932 version. This lets you have more fun when you watch the 1983 version. This way, any similarities or deviations from the original end up being more interesting. While I do like both movies, I do have preferences when it comes to the versions of characters that appear on screen. I like both of them, but Al Pacino is much more explosive. Paul Muni actually has more fun as Tony Camonte. For this reason, there's a chance that you'll have an easier time rewatching the original. Al Pacino is almost always serious. He truly feels like a soldier who just came out of jail. Paul Muni plays a happy-go-lucky gangster who loves the sound of his gun and laughs when his enemies fall. For this reason, while Camonte can be scary, Montana's serious nature makes him much more terrifying. Frank Lopez wins this one. He's the more reasonable of the two gangsters. I don't know why, but I don't respect Johnny Lovo. He doesn't feel like a gangster at all. Frank's philosophy is also profound. He says that the only people who last in the world of crime are those who are low-key and those who don't get too greedy. Those who want the world don't make it far. Tony Montana doesn't listen to him. He thinks that Lopez is too weak. If only he had listened. Rinaldo is scary, like really scary. He's so scary he makes Camonte look like a cheerful gangster. Ribera, on the other hand, moves like a playboy. In the 1983 version, it is Montana who is scarier. I'd hang out with Ribera, get one or two drinks while I watch him practice his pickup skills. It is for this reason that I pick Rinaldo. He's efficient, no nonsense, and quite terrifying. With him, you can easily get to the top of the American mafia. While Michelle Pfeiffer's Elvira is magnetic, I just like Poppy more. Poppy feels more essential to Camonte than Elvira is to Montana. In fact, Elvira divorces Montana and the movie just carries on. This makes Poppy a better rendition of this character, as she's part and parcel of Camonte's dream of owning the world. This is a tie. They are both beautiful actresses who manage to play this tragic role rather perfectly. I shall not choose. I have decided to be greedy. Other than the fun characters, these are the cinematic and narrative reasons I consider both films to be interesting. If you'd like to enjoy a long life, stay away from Tony's sister. For a man who doesn't blink twice at the thought of stealing his boss's girl, he's very sensitive about the idea of any man touching his sister. He loves his sister so much, he's willing to kill and destroy everything, just to keep her pure and untouched. In the remake, the director plays with this dynamic by making Gina call out Tony on this. Is he this protective because he's incestuous? In both movies, it is clear that this is not the case. Tony does truly believe his sister to be a symbol of hope and innocence. Unfortunately, the love he shows her, by showering her with money, inevitably drags her into the world of guns and gangsters. This will then set in motion the events that will eventually lead to his downfall. In the 1983 version, we get a much more intimate understanding of Tony's view on family. He gets married because he wants children. Yet, he and Elvira are cocaine addicts. There's no way they can bring a child into this ugly world of theirs. His fall starts when he refuses to assassinate a man who's been speaking against his drug-lord friends after he sees the man being accompanied by his wife and children. Therefore, despite Tony being a dark and unhinged character, he possesses that quality which all gangsters have had since the invention of the medium, an insane love for family. Tony Camonte and Tony Montana have a problem. They are too ambitious. If they were lawyers or doctors, they would have easily danced to the top of their fields. It is rather sad for the world around them that they are gangsters. In a matter of days, their names garner the attention of the most influential crime bosses around them. They get recruited, and their lives change overnight. They go from being broke men with a penchant for violence to feared associates of top gangsters. Yet, this is not enough. They want more. They want the world. In the original, this advertisement keeps coming up, and it serves as Tony Camonte's motivation. He truly wants the world to be his. In the remake, Tony Montana loves this phrase so much, it gets plastered everywhere around him. It is in his house, and it is seen in front of the various shadow businesses that he runs. These two movies share a plot. However, they do not share a story. What unites them thematically is that they are both aimed at portraying a contemporary societal problem. The 1932 version is grappling with Prohibition and the rise of the American Mafia. The 1983 version was released during the infancy of the global cocaine business. While the original Scarface is based on Al Capone, who was eventually taken down by the law, the remake offers no such comforts. In the original's ending, Tony Camonte is surrounded by the police. They are willing to do anything to arrest him. In the remake, it's the Bolivians who come for Tony Montana. A gunfight of godly proportions takes place, and law enforcement are nowhere to be seen. The police have been rendered useless and corrupt in this new world order that cocaine has carved. Howard Hawks' version opens with a condemnation of the US government for allowing the mafia to take root. There's little doubt that the 1932 film hates the people it's portraying. The ending is a good indication of this. Tony Camonte goes out begging and crying in a manner that doesn't make for comfortable viewing. This movie won't let you leave the theater until you have understood that crime doesn't pay. And yet the American Mafia would only get stronger from here. Although, by the time Brian De Palma's version is released, some of the prayers made by Howard Hawks have come true. The RICO statute has been passed. It has become easier for the federal government to imprison the Mafia. This being said, the 1983 version doesn't concern itself with this at all. The RICO statute is brought up, but is immediately negated as Tony can escape punishment if he carries out an assassination. This is because the remake is not an anti-gangster film. It is not pro-gangster either, but it might as well be. Tony Montana is an iconic character with iconic lines. You don't become this iconic because people hate you. You become a cultural mainstay because people walk out of the theater wishing they were you. Therefore, I believe this to be the main difference between these two versions. The first movie is a moral tale. The second movie is a tale about excess and what happens if you don't temper your appetites. Unfortunately, that excess is portrayed so beautifully that any warning against greed fails to land. Or perhaps the more apt question should be, can Hollywood survive without gangsters? The history of cinema is, after all, the history of the gangster movie. Pick a decade without an iconic gangster film, and you've unfortunately picked a poor cinematic decade. But that's just my opinion. That aside, Tony Montana goes off on a cocked-out and drunken rant, where he claims that the common people need gangsters so that they can have someone to point their fingers at, essentially someone to make them feel better about being less than perfect. Because, while one might be a bad husband, at least they're not a murderous drug dealer. He also suggests that everyone would like to be him, but they're not courageous enough. Perhaps this is why some of the greatest movies of all time are gangster films. On the silver screen, we get to live vicariously through the most brutal historical and fictional gangsters. For 2 or so hours, we get to shoot people, acquire wealth, women, and power with no consequences whatsoever. This phenomenon, of course, isn't limited to the screen. Thousands of pages of fiction have been dedicated to the romanticization of the gangster. The mafia, the yakuza, the triad are all treated in equal reverence. It seems that the public cannot get enough of its outcasts. Therefore, while this rant belongs to a section of the movie I didn't care for, Tony Montana is correct. Society would be so bereft without its criminal element. Just in case I wasn't clear before, please stay away from Tony's sister. I'd like you to be alive for my next episode, where I shall review a movie from 2011. Thank you for watching.